Here's how white oppressive forces subdued unified black protests in the U.S. White social engineering scientists determined a long time ago that by having white propagandists negatively distort how African Americans perceive Africa, they could make us believe that regardless of how much white racist hardship we endured in the U.S., that our lives are still much more better than had we remained in Africa. The propaganda campaign has been extremely successful. It's not only significantly reduced unified black protests, it has in fact made millions of African Americans feel literally grateful for the enslavement of our ancestors. Because we've been made to perceive it as being more of a rescue mission that actually benefited us. Our core problem is that most of us cannot see how our minds are being systematically manipulated to think in ways that serves and protects the interests of the white society. The reason why many black people find my content mentally jarring is because most black people don't actually know the true underlying relationship that presently exists between our racial group and the white society. Most black people believe that we are an imperfect society working hard to create a perfect union. Most believe that the government's objective is to become a colorblind society where which all citizens are treated equally. But these beliefs couldn't be furthest from the truth. The white government is unrelentingly committed to the preservation of its nation's white social dominance and social capital. There's also an immense concern over massive unified black retribution that secretly exists amongst the white ruling elites, given the white society's long and brutal mistreatment and exploitation of black people throughout history. This unrelenting commitment towards the preservation of the nation's white dominance over its black population and the immense concern of massive unified black retribution resulted in white oppressive forces deploying propaganda campaigns that aids in the preservation of its white dominance, and it prevents black people from unifying against the white society by keeping our collective aggression shifted from the white society and redirected towards ourselves. Presently, white government agents that specializes in psychiatry and propaganda works unrelentingly behind the scenes, perpetually manipulating the collective minds of the black masses. These men analyzes and studies everything about the black population, our beliefs, likes, dislikes, strengths, and our vulnerabilities. This surveillance information is gathered and decisions are then made on which fraudulent stories to produce to best create certain psychological feelings amongst the black population that assist the white society in maintaining its social dominance over black people and that prevent the black masses from unifying against the white society. These men govern our minds, molds our opinions, and shapes our perceptions in ways that protects and serves the system of white supremacy. These men are the true reason why many black people now perceives ourselves as being our own worst enemies and reveres Caucasians in spite of such a brutally horrific history of the contrary. Those who are ignorant insist that our collective condition, that our minds have been shaped in ways benefiting the white society, to a silly slave syndrome myth. Whenever people are ignorant, they'll always believe nonsense. Our minds were originally molded in ways serving the white society through religion, but these men also mold our minds through miseducation and media subliminal programming, and through perpetual demoralization. They first begin manipulating our collective minds during our early education development, when our minds are young and most impressionable, through an educational curriculums that exalts only whites and marginalizes black people. Our schools are in fact the places where we first experience the implication that whites are inherently superior to blacks. This is by deliberate design. Our schools deliberately subliminally conveys the myth that whites are inherently superior to blacks by making Caucasians appear as being more significant throughout history than they truly in fact were, while making black people appear more significantly lesser throughout history than we truly were. They achieved this by falsely putting Caucasians at the center of all significant feats throughout history. They falsely give themselves credit for most achievements that were actually made by black people, while withholding virtually all black racially affirming facts from black students. This conditions black students to grow up perceiving themselves as being inherently inferior to whites, which makes them grow up more accepting of their subordinate status within the white dominant society. This is the true reason why black people learns more black racially affirming facts from each other than we do so from within our white governed schools. This program is reinforced from pre-K through the 12th grade. Schools are tools of the government designed to mold the minds of the students according to the will of the government. And as I told you, the government is unrelentingly committed to the preservation of its white social dominance over its black population. This brainwashing of the black masses is then reapplied and reinforced throughout our entire lives through unrelenting black racially demoralizing media propaganda campaigns. Whenever those in power want to control a large targeted population, they do so by heavily demoralizing them. By heavily demoralizing your targeted population, you can destroy their morale. By destroying their morale, it can even prevent their will to fight against their enemies. It's very effective. No group can be heavily demoralized and not be adversely affected. It's not possible. You always suffer some adverse effect through unrelenting demoralization. This is precisely what's being done to the black masses by white oppressive forces. The white media's unrelenting negative depictions of the black population that constantly subjects black people to receiving only the fraudulent worst narratives and media depictions of ourselves is a black racially demoralizing divide and rule psychological warfare tactic. Demoralized divide and rule is a method of maintaining control over a targeted population through constant and unrelenting demoralization in order to create self-hate and disunity among them. This system is deployed like a massive media marketing campaign that constantly subjects the black population to receiving only the fraudulent worst narratives about ourselves. Within this system, fraudulent black racially demoralizing propaganda is being pumped unrelentingly into the unsuspecting minds of the black population without being challenged nor counterbalanced by an equal amount of black positive racially affirming information. This demoralizes us, divides us, and shifts black collective aggressions away from the white society and redirects it towards ourselves. The constant black racially demoralizing disinformation also causes many black people to doubt our ability to govern ourselves and to believe that we therefore need white people to govern over our lives. This causes many of us to abandon all hopes of ever liberating ourselves. This propaganda campaign also attacks the core foundation of what bonds us as a people, and we can then be ruled over forever. From the position of the white society, to not have deployed this propaganda campaign against the black population would have been against the interests of the white society. It's the real black people's matrix. Those of us who tell you the truth are trying to free you from a mental prison that you don't even know you're trapped within. They fed lots of disinformation into our community to keep us distracted from the truth. Because they know they keep our understandings flawed, then all of our liberating strategies that stem from those flawed misunderstandings will also be flawed. That's what they want you thinking we're the black Jews or we're the indigenous Americans. We're our worst enemies. We should call ourselves niggers. We have to wake up and learn what the real matrix is and then start working on developing counter strategies to liberate ourselves. It's time to wake up.